Welcome to the Colorado State Employee Assistance Program podcast, focused on personal well-being. We ask leaders across Colorado state government how they manage their own emotional well-being and mental health. My name is Natalie Newman, and I'm an EAP specialist with the Colorado State Employee Assistance Program, or CSEAP. We offer mental health counseling, leader consultation, critical incidents response, mediation, and webinar and facilitation services. You can find more information at cseap.colorado.gov. This is our inaugural podcast, and I'm excited to welcome our first guest, Tony Gherardini. So Tony serves as the State Personnel Director and Executive Director for the Colorado Department of Personnel and Administration. So he was appointed to Governor Jared Polis's cabinet at the end of 2021, and so you're coming up on a year in your role. So thanks so much for speaking with us.
Certainly, yeah. It's a thrill to be here, and I'm honored to be the first one you get to talk to, so thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, tell us a little bit about your role here at DPA. And full disclosure, CSEAP is within DPA.
That's right, yeah. So here at DPA, I'm the Executive Director for the Department of Personnel and Administration, which is the agency that ensures all other agencies in the government are fulfilling their administrative responsibilities and duties and performing their role insofar as what they owe to their employees, as well as who they contract with and their facilities. All of these things are overseen by Department of Personnel Administration as the seat of the chief administrative role for the state of Colorado. So DPA is primarily focused on making sure that agencies receive the support from a policy and procedural and expertise kind of perspective. My role is to oversee the divisions within DPA and make sure that we're also meeting the governor's expectations and applying his agenda throughout the state workforce and for our physical assets as well.
Gotcha. And so DPA really touches on a lot of the agencies within state government.
Yes, it does, yeah. So to get a little bit more examples, so we have a few different divisions that kind of promulgate the rules and standards for how we conduct work in the state. So we have the Chief Human Resource Officer reports up to my role. They set the standards for human resources across the state of Colorado. We also have the State Architect, which describes how we procure, lease, build new property when it comes to the state of Colorado. But we really do kind of create the structure by which government runs in the state.
Gotcha. Great. Well, let's get into kind of the meat and potatoes, or potatoes and tofu, of what this podcast is about, which is really personal well-being. And so I'm guessing you juggle many personal and also professional roles and duties. And so how do you maintain your resilience to do this juggle?
Sure, yeah, no, you're right about that. I have 3 young kids at home, and my wife works full-time also as a school psychologist for Cherry Creek Schools. And so it really is a juggle. I think that it's something that I've only really been able to balance out over a number of years and working in trial and error and trying to figure out how to do that. A little bit of my history is I started working for the state of Colorado in 2014. Prior to that, I had a variety of other interesting careers. I was a police officer and a detective for 7 years with the Lakewood Police Department here in Colorado. I was also in the Army National Guard for a number of years with a deployment to Afghanistan. And so balancing life and work and responsibilities has always been something that's been important, and I've only gotten better at it over time. So that is to say that I've had plenty of opportunity to make mistakes in the past. I think more to your point of the question about kind of balance, I think there's a lot of factors to it. But I think for me, the most important thing is always to remember and first have a very clear set of priorities. And of course, for me, while career is very important, and more important than career is service. And so in that is nested my responsibility to the state of Colorado and to the governor. My family always comes first, and that's always how I identify myself and see myself. And so I think that if I were to offer kind of one overarching tip for balance is first make sure that your priorities are set straight and that you're keeping your eye on the ball when it comes to why you do what you do.
Yeah, sounds almost kind of like a values check of like what are your values and how do you prioritize them?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I can say that looking back in different careers that I had prior to this, individuals who would identify themselves as their role in the job. So, for instance, who am I? Oh, I am a police officer. I am a soldier, would tend to muddle their identity with their responsibilities and their work. And I think that's when you start getting into a real dangerous situation where you're likely to start losing those boundaries between when you should be turning on the work engine and turning it off. And so those can look like I'm checking my email all the time on the weekends and after work hours are off, and I'm answering things at 11 o'clock at night, or I'm thinking of something and calling a work colleague on a weekend out of the blue to talk about some work that doesn't necessarily need to be handled on the weekend. Those are easy things to fall into. And I think that you can always feel productive in that way, especially if you're identifying that this is who you are in the world. But my urging would be to say, like, let's remember why we do the jobs we do. Is it to support yourself and your family? Well, then the job is a means to an end. That's certainly not to say don't prioritize it, don't do your best, because it's important, and I think it's moral to have pride in your work and to do the very best you can in all situations when it comes to your professional life. But if it's not in pursuit of something higher and more important, then look for a way to find something higher and more important than your job, because there are greater things in life.
Yeah, no, and it reminds me a little bit of, I've worked with folks who, when those identities change, it can be really hard, whether that's a student who has always identified themselves as straight A student, or a person who's like a student athlete and then they graduate and they're no longer an athlete. It can be really, really a jarring transition to kind of re-find what that identity is. And so having multiple parts of our identity valued, I think, is really important. What do you do regularly to reduce stress or support your own mental well-being?
Sure. So I think, there's a few things. As far as mental well-being and kind of reducing stress, I try to do things that are quiet and deliberately cause me to not be in the spin or the thrall of what a normal day is like. And when I say normal day, I think it's something we can all relate to, is what I define as like the normal overwhelming flow of information that we're receiving. So social media, the news media, work, email from work, video calls, phone calls, all these types of things. The best way that I found to decompress from all of that is to find things that take me away necessarily from those things, and doing things that you can't simultaneously listen to news media, check your social media, things like that. I will say that the first step that I took was to get rid of all social media. So I have none. I don't even have a LinkedIn, and that has been tremendously beneficial. But the things that I do are related to like reading. I enjoy reading quite a bit. I enjoy music, and so I'll sit down sometimes, especially when I'm feeling particularly stressed or overwrought, and play piano, just to kind of get back and focus on that type of exercise that you have to do to be in the moment. And so those are important things. Exercising is also very important, whether it's even if it's just going for a walk, walking the dog, getting outside in fresh air. Those are all like critical strategies that I use to try to keep me grounded and more or less sane, and not prone to becoming, another reactionary, function of the world around, which is kind of like receive stimulus and immediately react.
Right. Yeah. Well, I love the components that you talked about and how they really bring in this component of mindfulness, right? Playing music versus, doom scrolling on social media, where you could do multiple things and it feels quote unquote productive to some degree. But yeah, I see you're laughing.
Yeah, I think so. I think that doom scrolling is a perfect example. It scratches that dopamine itch. And then when you shift away, I found you just feel a little bit worse, and that compounds. And so that's exactly right, like being mindful. And I think that's a buzz term a lot of times. And so for those who are kind of thinking about what is it to be mindful, or how do I become mindful? Mindful is doing that thing where you're in the zone and you're losing your time because you are so involved in what you're doing. So for instance, for me, that would be the playing piano type thing, or the reading books. But if yours is doing something artistic, or writing, or doing something that is just your intellect and your activity, or is even gardening and something where you can just do it and forget what you're doing because you enjoy it so much, that is what mindfulness really is. And that's the ultimate way to balance, I think, your mental health and behavioral health when it comes to finding balance in your life with your work.
Yeah, I'm also thinking of all the people who like skiing and snowboarding and how, right, that is in and of itself a really mindful activity. So, yeah. Now, you talked about some things that it sounds like you do personally. And so I'm curious as to what, some of your simple strategies that you might be willing to share that help manage the stress of the workday.
Certainly. So I think number one is structure. Structure allows a level of predictability, and predictability allows our brains to not be in that overdrive of trying to sense everything around us because we are trying to figure out what we need to do next. When we can shift into a place in our mind where we know more or less what's coming, or at least know how to react, it provides that space and time to feel more comfortable with where we are in the moment and in the day. And so what structure looks like for me is a kind of multifaceted. So there's the day-to-day structure where I have the specific times in my calendar already booked where I will have time to do, office work and more or less be able to depend on those times for checking email, things like that. Setting up a normal structure of cadence of meetings is very important for me, I think, and I hope for my staff as well, so that it's not an ad hoc flow of information coming in so that we get trapped in the receipt and reaction kind of cycle for data flow, but we have set meetings on set days and set months so we can predict that routine. Personally, that kind of structure expands out to the rest of my life. So when the day is over, putting my phone away to the extent that you can put it away. And by that I mean not continuing to look at my phone or not remaining on a screen once the day is over, because we spend a lot of time in that, and trying to get up and walk around and have conversations with my family, do things that need to be done around the house, effectively doing something to move away from the technological interface that we're locked into. And then beyond that, on a week, I found this to be very helpful, not just for work-life balance and for decompression, but also in predictability and comfort for my kids. We have a normal structure where on the weekends we'll wake up on Saturdays and we'll work first thing on Saturday is to get the house back to a place where it doesn't look like a tornado hit it, because moving from Saturday afternoon when everything should be clean and back in its place to the following Friday evening, the house really goes through a wrecking crew with 3 little kids at home. So we go ahead and we straighten and clean everything Saturday morning to the afternoon. Saturday evening is when we'll have time to go out and either see friends, see family, go out and do something together, stay home, do nothing kind of thing. Then Sunday rolls around, and that's a day where we leave all of our electronics off. Kids can read, they can play, they can ride their bikes, they can do things outside, but we really do our best to have zero screen time on Sundays. We focus on making sure that we cook a meal so that we get one meal that we cook from scratch to sit down together on. We shoot for more, but that's what we do on Sundays. And then by that time, laundry's already been done and everybody's ready for work at school the next day. And it's also easier to get everybody to sleep because we haven't had that kind of blue light stimulation kind of thing from technology all day long. So that's kind of the structure that we found that makes it easiest in the home, which of course then leads into an easier week when you're not, you and your wife and all 3 kids just crying at each other Monday morning when it's time to get to work and school. So.
Right. So it sounds like structure is really important, not just for, home life, but also at work life and managing that stress. Now, as a leader, what are some things that you do or encouragements that you give to your team in support of their well-being?
The most important thing that I hope that I get across to my folks is keeping things in perspective. A lot of the time I think in any workplace, but you see it especially in government where we're here in service and we really care about what we're doing. There's a greater kind of mission to it as opposed to, what might be in some private sector. There's a tendency for folks to get emotionally invested to the point where it starts becoming detrimental and treating any kind of change or any kind of not great news as a big deal. And so the message that I hope I'm able to communicate to my staff is let's keep stuff in perspective. Mistakes are going to happen. Bad stuff's going to happen. Things we don't want to happen are going to happen. But the likelihood that any of these are going to be so detrimental that we're not going to be able to accomplish our mission, or somebody's going to get hurt or injured, or they're very critical to how you're thought of in the organization, is actually extremely low. We all tend, I think, get to a place where we expect, I'm on a tightrope, any mistake is going to be the mistake, but that's statistically impossible and certainly not the case. And so what I really want to get across to my staff is we'll keep in perspective, and we are going to be as accommodating and as laid back and as relaxed as possible when it comes to day-to-day. We're going to keep a good sense of humor, remain grounded, be able to point out things, be sarcastic about stuff, and more or less act like, grown professional adults who know how to handle their workload. And that way, at least in my philosophy, when those real critical times come, when it's like you have to have this presentation to the legislature within 24 hours, or the governor needs this turned around in a very short period of time, and we're working late into the night, we'll have the capacity mentally and physically to do that because we're not constantly sitting in a place of stress and concern and fear and worry and panic all the moments leading up to that, because we need to have all of our capacity for those late night hard work sessions, and a lot of the times we don't need to be in that place. Maybe we never need to be in that place in the day-to-day.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think of people who work in environments where they're just, right, always go, 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 on deadlines. Everything seems like a fire that needs to be put out, and how, right, that's so detrimental to one's health, right? We got that bump of cortisol and, blood pressure and all of those negative baselines can rise. And, right, it's so much easier to kind of recover when there is that space and that capacity to breathe.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. In other words, you can't be at 100% production and productivity, because when the time comes that you really need to be at 100%, you have nowhere additional to go. I bring the wrong perspective on this. The reason that I think I come with this perspective is because I developed professionally in my career from my early 20s to my late 20s, where I think is where you do a lot of your learning and kind of solidifying your leadership and how you think about organizations and things like that, in the military and as a police officer. And so the benefit of that was to be able to, when I came into state service in kind of a more, I'd say, relaxed office type atmosphere, is to be able to, I think, more easily differentiate between what are really critical, dangerous-ish moments, and I use that term in a way of saying there's a risk to us not being able to execute and do what we need to do, as opposed to those which are ultimately experiences to learn from and to get better. And so my orientation, more often than not, is tipped towards, let's accept that mistakes are going to happen, we're going to move on, and then we're going to talk about how to not make the mistakes again in the future, so that, again, when that time comes for a critical reaction that we need to be on point 100%, we'll have had the benefit of a learning environment where we could make mistakes and learn from them, so that we're more informed on how to react to the emergencies. And so I think that's what I brought from my past. I hope that's kind of what I'm thinking, how I think about a stressful versus not stressful workplace.
Yeah. Well, it also makes me think of something I tell clients. A lot of things in therapy, we're talking about things that we know we should be doing, right? And it's so much easier to talk about it than to actually do it. and certainly, there are days that are just going to be hard. And so I'm curious as to, what self-care, what balance looks like for you at its worst. Like when, the kids are sick, or, your wife is out of town, or whatever. Like, there's a plethora of possibilities and things that could happen. But what does self-care look like for you at its worst?
Yeah, so you're spot on. Like, when it gets to its worst, then how do you fall back on these things? And I think that, first off, the structure that I referred to in the first place, really what it is, it's a discipline. And a discipline is something that, you practice it so that when the hard times come, it's what you fall onto as a structure, as a bulwark to kind of hold you up. So that's one thing that's important. Spiritual life is important for me as well. My faith is a tremendous benefit, especially in providing perspective on things, understanding that there's more to life than what you're dealing with in the present moment and the worry. And so it's important to make sure that you have enough of a support system that you've built up in easier times to react to those harder times. And so, of no surprise, me talking about structure and where I come from, of course, one thing to fall back on certainly is structure from where it can come, but also the most important thing is, and I think right to your point, is never to make the mistake of thinking that creating these structures or these routines or how you should be in life is how you should be 100% of the time. And so that means don't make perfect the enemy of the good, and do the best you can each day. And sometimes doing the best you can is going to be barely getting out of bed, getting to work, and getting back into bed, and that's totally fine. everybody's there. Everybody goes through that more frequently than I think any of us are necessarily like aware of or would think happens. And so I think the point is to strive and to do your best, keep perspective that this is just the now, not the forever, and what is true today will not be true tomorrow necessarily. So I tell myself those things and kind of reaffirm myself on that, and work to kind of issue the perfectionism that I think can creep in. Because oftentimes I think the problem with that is, I can say my experience, I'll tend to think, well, if I can't do it perfectly, then I'm not even going to try to do it at all, which is completely missing the benefit of like a 0 to 85% accomplishment, or a 0 to 30% accomplishment could be, as opposed to that 100% that we hope to achieve all the time. So it's really mental practice, and it's just hoping for grace from others when they see that, but also giving it to folks too, because it's unrealistic for us to necessarily expect 100% of ourselves all the time. And I also think it's unnecessary to expect that all the time from those around us.
Yeah, I mean, these are really great nuggets, and I love that phrase, like, don't let the good be the enemy of the perfect. I think oftentimes we're... Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And so, oftentimes I think we can be like, oh, I'm not gonna go for a run. I don't have time to go for a run. But it's like,
I'll never make my run. I'll never make a 25-minute 3 mile today. Like I feel, so it's like walk for 3 miles, right? Like that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Great. Well, anything else before I let you go that you'd like to add or share?
Sure. Yeah, no, just a statement of gratitude for the entire state workforce. I think that the thing that we all get to share that is unique is that we are all in service to something higher and to people that are not ourselves and to people that we'll never meet. And I think there's something that you should be particularly proud of in the fact that you've dedicated yourself not just to providing likely for yourselves and for your families and working hard at a career, but also that it's a career that is intended to make the lives of the people around you, and many people you'll never know, better than they would be otherwise. And so as a public servant, I thank you for what you've done for me and my family, and I appreciate tremendously to be counted in the ranks of individuals in service to the state. So thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, this has been really, really wonderful to speak with you. So thank you again, Tony, for being our inaugural guest on our podcast.
Well, it's been an honor. I appreciate it, and I will happily join anytime. This has been a tremendous podcast experience, so thank you so much.
On this podcast, we focus on mental health and well-being. If you are an employee of a State of Colorado agency or Colorado higher education, public university, or college, you are eligible for the Colorado State Employee Assistance Program services. You can visit CSEAP.colorado.gov for more information or schedule an appointment by calling 303-866-4314. Thanks for listening.